Ayan, so welcome to the third part of our lecture series for week 4 on communication and globalization. On the last part of part 2, we discussed the first of the three areas of study in communication between members of different culture, which is the intercultural communication. Now, to repeat, intercultural communication concentrates on studies of the actual interaction between members of different cultures. Now, let's proceed with cross-cultural communication. This one studies the comparison of two or more cultural communities. So, for instance, comparing conflict styles of German managers and Spanish managers. So, this might be illustrated with the research carried out by Lorenzoni and Lewis 2004. So they focused on how Italian airline service staff and British service staff responded in situations when service went wrong. So the staff worked for the same airlines and they claimed they would solve the problem in a similar way following the company rules. The results showed that Italian staff were more likely to adapt the rules in some cases, whereas the British were stricter in keeping the rules. So yun naman yung gusto nating tignan sa cross-cultural, no? We compare two or more cultural communities for cross-cultural communication. So, for example, um, paano naman ang pag-transact ng business ng Chinese nationals and Filipinos, let's just say. So, two or more. So, you can add one Indian, let's just say. Paano yung business styles nila? Ayan, cross-cultural yun. And we also have interdiscourse, the third one, finally. Now, studies in interdiscourse communication focus on answering the question how culture is made relevant in a text or interaction, and how cultural identity is formed through text and talk. That's according to Pillar 2017. So, for example, Galasinski and Jaworski 2003 investigated the ways in which people who live in tourist destinations are represented in travel writing. So, the material analyzed was collected from the travel section of a British broadsheet newspaper. Galasinski and Jaworski identified three main strategies to describe people who live in tourist destinations. So, first, the newspapers used very general labels such as locals or women. A second strategy was a description of prototypical individual in a tourist destination. And last but not least, local people were described as willing to help tourists and being hospitable. Okay, so that's the interdiscourse communication. Now, let's go back to the intercultural communication because Um, Newly 2006 provided us fundamental assumptions about intercultural communication, which are deemed important for our lesson. So these five assumptions will help us to understand more about the concept of intercultural communication. So the first assumption is messages relayed are not usually the messages received. So what's the meaning of that? When two speakers from different cultures interact, their values, emotions, perceptions, and behaviors greatly affect the interpretation of their messages. So, intercultural communication is a symbolic activity where the thoughts and ideas of one are encoded into a verbal or nonverbal message format, then transmitted through some channel to another person who must decode it, interpret it, and respond to it. Thus, cultural noise is filled with encoding, decoding, and interpreting, making culture a smokescreen of all the messages. So this allows the speakers to think that one's own culture is the center of everything. So what's the implication to this one? Whenever talking to someone with a different upbringing, with a different culture, you have to make sure that the messages that they're trying to convey and to give you must be dealt with or interpreted well. You do not just jump into conclusions based on how you perceive it, but as much as possible, try to understand, dig deeper, delve into these messages relayed by speakers of other cultures as well. Maybe, possibly, because the first assumption, messages relayed are not usually the messages received. Dito rin papasok yung concept na sometimes it is not what you say, but it's how you say it. Okay? Second assumption would be a nonverbal act between individuals. Since it is said that intercultural communication is a nonverbal procedure where articulation of power, intimacy, and status being combined with paralinguistic cues, proxemics, haptics, oculesics, and olfactics. For instance, an individual's possession in Korea is manifested through vocal tone and pitch, 'di ba? Especially also on languages na tonal, na magkamali ka lang ng tone, iba na ibig sabihin nun. There are also languages na katulad sa Korea, yung vocal tone and pitch niya ay dep nakadepende sa posisyon mo. Kung makakapanood kayo ng historical drama nila, iba magsalita ang eunuch, iba magsalita ang king, iba magsalita ang ganito, ganyan, ganyan. Iba yung ano nila, vocal tone and pitch. Okay? Therefore, when a lowly person receives an important document, this person grasps with both hands and associated with a moderate head nod and indirect eye contact. So ito naman yung mga nonverbal cues na sinasabi natin. Okay? So different sensory is shared by different cultures, and which is true. In the Philippines, we also do this. We also have this one. Edwards Hall, cited from Neolib 2006, claims that various cultures employ in selective screening of sensory information that will eventually result in different perspectives. So regarding olfactics, the smell, pang-amoy, most cultures establish norms for acceptable and unacceptable scents associated with the human body. O tayo rin naman, kapag amoy bayabas ka na, gusto mo ba nun? Kapag amoy langka, amoy sibuyas, amoy something, we have already established the norms for acceptable and unacceptable scents associated with the human body. So when people fail to fit into the realm of olfactic cultural acceptability, let's just say, for example, their other signals others that something is wrong with their physical, emotional, or mental health. Sasabihin ng iba na hindi hygienic, sabihin ng iba baka may sakit, sabihin ng iba na talagang badly odorous. But if you go to other countries, may specific smell sila, no? And I have watched a particular video about a particular genetic mutations or genetic uniqueness in countries. Sa Korea, may specific gene pala silang ano, nagpapabawas ng body odor nila. Kaya sa kanila pala ay parang lesser yung market nila at supply at saka what I mean is demand sa paggamit ng deodorants, gano'n. Kasi meron silang gene 'no sa lahi nila na nakakabawas ng hindi magandang body odor. May mga gano'n, okay? Sa Philippines, ano yung mga tawag sa mga body odor natin? Putok and everything. Kasi we already have established the norms for acceptable olfactic cultural concept. So kapag you deviate from that based on how you smell, iba yung magiging tingin sa'yo ng mga tao. So something is wrong with that. Another one, Americans are fixated on how to mask the smell of the human body since body odor is considered as horrible and unlikable. So several Muslims think that hygiene of the body and purity of the soul are correlated. After menstruation, Muslim women purify themselves. So even before and after meals, cleanliness is being recommended. So pinag-aralan din natin to kanina sa cultural differences, no? And we really cannot deny the fact that across all cultures, no, the way we view things, especially on the smell, talaga magkakaiba yan. So that's the second assumption, a nonverbal act between individuals. So ano tong mga, I have here the global guide to hand gestures. Makikita mo na iba-iba. Okay, so body language can be a funny thing depending on where you are in the world. Certain gestures can either mean you're making a new mate or landing yourself in hot waters. So here's a guide to what means what and where. The hand sign, the OK sign, it indicates satisfaction sa mga bansang Australia, USA, UK, Canada. Sa Brazil naman, if the OK sign is turned upside down, it is considered a rude gesture, equivalent to the one finger salute. Parang ganun yung dating niya, yung bad finger and middle finger. Okay? The horn finger. Oh, di ba may horn fingers? Sa USA, adopted by rockers as a sign of approval, in essence, to rock on. Rocky. So, Italy, Brazil, Colombia, Portugal, Spain, and other parts of the world, to make this sign at someone is to tell them their wife is cheating on them. O iba ang dating. So, napaka-importante ng intercultural understanding and knowledge kapag pumunta ka sa mga lugar na to because nonverbal signals and nonverbal gestures differ across countries. So, dapat we're very, very careful. Okay? Another one, the fingers all together. Di ba pag Italy masarap, parang ganun. Or enjoy, ganyan siya. What is this? What do you want? Usually done with a flick of the wrist. Democratic Republic of Congo, a sign for a small amount of something. Maliit. Halata mo, totoo naman. Turkey indicates that something is beautiful or well. Egypt, a motion to show you'll only be a minute. Sa Philippines, ang tawag natin yung Q. Ibig sabihin, eme. Ganyan, di ba? Sometimes, ilalagay natin itutusok natin yan sa table, on the table, or any surface, or sa shoulder natin, or ganon. QQ, cucumber. Next, the thumbs up. So, for Australia, US, UK, Canada, Russia, that's a sign of approval. Tayo rin naman, di ba? Okay ka lang, ganyan-ganyan. O, thumbs up kapag kwan. Ganun, di ba? Latin America, West Africa, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan. In other parts of the world, this is seen as an up yours. Okay, up yours. The crossed fingers, 'di ba kapag may sinabing sumpa or curse ka sa kasama mo magaganyan siya magka-cross fingers para ibig sabihin hindi mangyari or crossed fingers sana mangyari. Alam, may ganun pala tayo ano. Australia, US, UK, Canada, to cross one fingers is to wish for good luck. Wish also, doon pala natin nakuha yung wish for good luck. Pero yung pang-an-an na siguro style talaga natin yun. Unique sa atin yan. Vietnam, crossed fingers are said to resemble female genitals. Oh my god, I cannot. Hence, this gesture is seen as lewd. So, naku, sa Vietnam, huwag ka magganyan-ganyan at pakita nila para kang nagme-middle finger. So, parang female genital siya. I-check ko nga. Di ko sure. I don't have it. Okay, next. The V sign. V sign. Ang dami. Peace sign. Or tingnan natin sa iba. Sa USA, harmless backward sign for peace. Sa Australia, UK, Ireland, and New Zealand, it's seen as rude and frequently used to signify contempt or defiance towards authority. Okay. So, ganun naman ang dating ng V sign. So, tignan nyo, across cultures, across countries, magkakaiba talaga. So, you have to be very careful with the hand signals that you are giving. Lalo na tayo Pilipino, napaka-impulsive pa man natin gumalaw and everything. Mamaya, pati yung mga sounds natin, magaganyan-ganyan lang tayo, nasa ibang bansa tayo others would think of it as a rude act, di ba? The come here, yan, ayoko to. Anyway, discuss ko. Australia, USA, UK, Canada, gesture is used to motion somebody to come over. Come over. Pero parang ano 'no, masyado kang mababa or inferior kapag napasunod ka naman. Philippines, considered highly offensive when motioned to another person as discussed is reserved for dogs. O parang minamaliit mo yung tao, 'di ba gano'n yung dating. Or kapag yung mga sinasabi nating prostitutes, yung nagaganon mo lang sila. Mga ganong ano sa Philippines, napakabongga ng Pilipinas, dami nating mga bad signs, ha. 'Di ko kinakaya. The point. Okay, for Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, Austria. A gesture for number two. Kasi dalawa naman yan, bibilangin mo yung thumb tapos yung index, okay? China, a gesture for number eight. Oh, talaga? And Italy indicates something is not good. Something is not good na ganyan ka, sige. Tayo, baril-barilan natin 'yan, 'di ba? Kapag gusto mong kumalaban sa bato-ba topic at alam mong mananalo ka, kahit wala naman talagang baril doon sa choices, eh, ipipilit mo yung gun mo. Marami rin naman tayong mga ganap na ganyan. The downwards palm wave, 'pag gano'n. Sa Australia, US, UK, Canada, that means go away. This gesture is used to shoo somebody off. Sa Philippines naman, Vietnam, India, Ghana, come here. Oh, baliktad ah. Having an upward palm is considered rude in certain countries, hence the downwards palm approach. Okay, so ganun naman ang views niya. So please remember all this. The chin flick. O, sino dito ang nag-chin flick? Yung may mannerism ng flicking of their chins. Sa France, Belgium, and Tunisia, it is used to express supreme disinterest or to tell somebody to get lost. Pag ginano mo sila, ibig sabihin you don't like them. You're not interested to them and you want them to go away. Huwag magpakita in front of your face. Sa Italy naman, I don't give a damn. Wala akong pakialam sa'yo. Okay, so ganun yung ibig sabihin. Sa Philippines, I don't think, kasi si as former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte ay hindi naman nag-flick eh. Ano lang siya, naka-lean lang siya, kit din naman sa kamay niya. The fist and elbow. So Mexico, South America, in many Latin American countries, this gesture known as the tequeño, kayo, meaning stinging, illustrates that the recipient really extends their arm to pay the bills. Oh, for Austria and Germany, this indicates that the recipient is an idiot. Oh my God. And their brain is in their elbow. Oh, I cannot. O, tingnan yung differences. The forehead fist, hindi naman tayo masyado nagaganito. Sa Brazil, most effective with multiple grunts, it is to indicate stupidity. Oh, okay. And the thumb in a fist, ayan. So Australia, UK, Canada, it's a common playful gesture used by adults towards children pretending to have a stolen child's nose. Oh, cute. Very cutesy, very mindful, very demure. Sa Turkey naman, it is seen as aggressive and rude. Sa bagay, you cannot judge them naman on how they believe on that. The outward hand. So the outward hand, Greece, Africa, Pakistan, seen as insulting or confrontational. O pag ano ha, outward hand sa mga bansang yan. So this evolved from the traditional practice of rubbing dirt, feces, or ashes into the faces of convicts. Oh, kaya pala. Sige. Then the awkward turtle. For USA, that's public acknowledgement that one's gaffe has caused social embarrassment. And for American Sign Language, it means platypus. Okay, the cute animal. So, with these gestures in mind, be careful when traveling abroad. You might just be better leaving your hands in your pocket if you forget. Lalo na sa masyadong strict, no? When it comes to the etiquette, social norms ng mga bansa. And as visitors, as tourists, we really don't want to offend the natives, no? Na pinagpapasyalan natin. And therefore, in order to communicate well, manapakahalaga nito, this would really foster intercultural understanding. Okay? And number three, assumption, involvement of style in communication among speakers. So there are communication gaps, and we know that. And only wisdom tells us when to speak or not. Okay? Interpretation of silence differs from across cultures. Someone lives sa atin napaka-common when we are silent, it means yes, 'di ba? Kapag nagtatanong tapos di ko umiimik, yes daw, ganun ganon. So expression of intimacy in relationships is best demonstrated without words according to the Japanese and some Native American tribes. Kasi nga, the best things in life are not cannot be touched, cannot be tangible materials, but those that are intangible and can only be felt by heart. So they believe that having to put one's thoughts and an emotion into words somehow cheapens and discounts them. So feel ko itong Japanese na 'to at, Native American tribes na mas gusto nila yung without words kapag nagde-demonstrate sila ng love nila or intimacy sa relationships. Sila yung acts of service, sila yung physical touch, ayan. So several cultures favor indirect and impersonal style in communication. So there is no necessity of saying verbally every message. Meron naman kasi 'di ba words of affirmation ang love language. True understanding is implicit, coming not from words but from actions in the environment where speaker provides hints or insinuations. So, magkakaiba yan sa bawat culture. Sa Philippines, we are a melting pot of cultures, so magkakaiba talaga rin tayo on the way express our intimacy in our relationships, and it's also dependent on the needs and wants, no, of our partners, of our loved ones, of our friends. Siyempre, ang hirap naman mag-share ng intimacy sa strangers. Ewan ko lang kung ginagawa niyo yan. Assumption number 4, group phenomenon experienced and shared by individuals. What does that mean? Communication is subject to the speaker's background and knowledge. So in other words, we have a tendency to see others not as individuals with unique thoughts, ideas, and goals, but rather than as an Asian or as a woman or an old person or a cab driver. So we do not see the person, we see the groups to which the person belongs. Kaya nga sometimes papasok to later yung mga issues when it comes to intercultural communication. Nagge-generalize na tayo, ta's may stereotyping na, nagpuput na tayo ng labels. Kapag nagkakamali tayo sa mga bagay na ito, possibly karoon ng bias, communication bias. So that's why people must not prejudge a person just because this individual is associated to a specific group. Kasi hindi naman lahat gano'n. No, ang hirap mag-generalize when someone really is an exemption from the group. So when this happens, miscommunication cannot be avoided, and that is okay. But during intercultural communication, we have to be mindful, no, that while the person with whom we are interacting is from a different cultural group, he or she is also an individual. So only through intercultural communication can we ever get to know the person as an individual, and that is the power of our intercultural skills. Sometimes, and most of the time, I think, whenever we meet someone, we already have the first impression in them. And we should not, may mga tao kasi na kung ano yung first impression, yun na eh. 'Di ba? But we should not do that. You know? Because we are always changing. Who we are yesterday is different from who we are today. And understanding that these changes happen to all people, would diminish 'no, our intercultural understanding kasi masyado na tayong naging, close-minded sa kanila. Kaya nga only through intercultural communication can we ever get to know the person as an individual, okay? And, what's the other assumption? Apat lang ba ang assumption na 'yan? We also have the fifth assumption. It's a circuitous or of adoption and stress. Okay? It was not stated here, but there is a fifth assumption there. So, ano yung mga key ideas from all these discussions that we have? First, advancement in communication technologies, modern transport systems, global economy, international business, mass migration, and international exchange are major contributors to cultural diversity in our society as well as globalization. While geographic borders that used to separate people from people and country from country are receding, there are various issues associated with globalization and challenges we face by living in a global village, which highlight the necessity of acquiring skills in intercultural communication. Kasi, although this happens now over a long period of time, we really cannot deny the fact that although we are coming to a unified society, dahil nga nanggaling tayo sa mga magkakaibang kultura at pinanggalingan even our orientations and upbringings, there will really be no issues associated with globalization since we have diversity issues. And having the knowledge and acquiring skills in intercultural communication will help, no, lessen and address these issues. Our culture governs our behavior, that is true. However, our way of doing may be neither the only nor the only right way. So different cultural customs and practices need to be interpreted in their own contexts. Kaya ang culture is context dependent. And in order to harness the benefits of cultural diversity in our society, we need to develop sound knowledge and skills in communicating with people from different cultures. The world is already global, and communication technologies are there in the vast changing society. Bongga ng internet, with just a click, you can see, learn, and witness all the events happening across the globe. Use all the tools and resources provided for you bago pa kayo pinanganak to learn and to be able to communicate effectively with people from different cultures. Okay, as much as possible, especially as educators, we will be exposed, no, to myriads, thousands, many people, many students, many learners, many parents who have different cultural backgrounds, and it is just important that we acquire intercultural skills, not to manage these differences and to understand where they're coming from. The study of intercultural communication equips us with the necessary knowledge and dynamic skills to manage differences efficiently and effectively. So just looking into the class of us, sa inyo, you're coming from different schools with different school culture and climate, classroom culture and climate, may kanya-kanyang household cultures, and you come into a class as one class. It's important that we study intercultural communication because it will help you understand each other. It will help you create a good, harmonious environment in class. And as much as possible, no, it will help you adjust from the differences among you as classmates. So, thank you so much for listening to the three-part series of our week 4 lesson on communication and globalization. Although I have provided a task, a group activity for all of you since we are already busy, please watch as much as possible the video lessons that I'm providing so that you'll be geared not to understand everything. And I would like to thank you for your time and effort for listening to my very, very long presentation. So again, thank you so much and see you soon.